You're listening to the Cat Breeder Sensei Says podcast. I'm your show host, April Catito. And in this episode, we're going to talk about a taboo subject, pricing strategies for your pedigree kittens. We're going to cover how to maximize value and profit for your cattery. Now, as much as the cat hags don't want to admit it, breeding pedigree cats is a business. When you're exchanging money for a kitten, that is a transaction and that is a business. And pricing your kittens is a critical part of your breeding business. How you price your kittens affects profitability, your customer perception, and the sustainability of your cattery. We're going to take all of that into consideration and learn how to price your kittens right after this message.
Do you want to learn how to become a successful breeder of pedigree cats? Now you can. For the first time ever, enroll in an online training course that takes you step by step through everything you need to know to get on the right track. Visit catbreedersensei.com to sign up today and use code podcast21 to get $25 off.
I actually just got done preparing all of my stuff for my tax return for 2023. Yes, I'm a little late. It's okay. I filed an extension, but I put all of my expenses and reconcile my accounts in Zoho Books. That's the bookkeeping software that I use. So I account for every single dollar that is spent on my cattery. And I can tell you that the cost involved in breeding cats it's pretty expensive. You probably have heard that. Veterinary care, food, registration fees, the cost of actually buying the cats, emergency care, litter, gifts for your new owners. There's things that you're always going to be spending money on. And I think I'm going to do a podcast episode and break down these costs for you so that you can actually get a peek into really what the costs are. Everybody is always saying, like, it's so expensive to breed cats. You need to have all this money and all this, emergency funds and sometimes I see what they're telling people online, how much they need, and I'm like, you don't really need that much. Like, that's a little exaggerant, but then, I break down my cost, and I always remember, like, the first year, once you start getting your kittens and you're waiting for them to grow up and mature, it's all output. There's no income from anything. It's all, having the money to make sure that you can support yourself and your cattery until you have kittens and can sell them and, try to recoup some of that money. So there's definitely cost involved with being a pedigree cat breeder and owning a cattery. So those costs need to be factored in when you are trying to determine the pricing for your kittens, because no matter what anyone tells you, you don't want to do this for zero profit. You will see online this stupid effing narrative that you're a giant evil person if you make money, and everybody is bragging about how they make zero money or they're in the hole and negative. And I'm just here to encourage you not to do that. Don't be that person. That I don't understand that narrative. I never have, but it's okay to make a profit, and in fact, you should, because you have hard costs, you have hard expenses, you have time, emotion. Everything is invested in this cattery. I know it is, and you should be compensated for that. Your time is not free, your knowledge isn't free, your experience isn't free, and your cats aren't free. So you should not ever structure your business, i.e. your cattery, so that you are breaking even. You should always be trying to make a profit. So there's also, breeding specific cost, maintaining your cattery, genetic testing, paying stud fees if you do that in your area. So, there's always new stuff that is coming up. Sometimes they're one-time fees and sometimes they're ongoing. So your minimum price needs to cover all of your costs compensate you for your time and avoid any losses whatsoever. So sure, you could come up with some, pie in the sky price to put on your kittens and hope that people will pay it and, that you will turn a profit from that. But that's probably not the best way to determine, the best price for your kitten. That's not a pricing strategy. It's just to pull something out of the air. I think one of the most important factors is market demand. How much demand is there for your specific breed of cat in your area, in your region, let's just say in your country? A good way to determine if there is a higher demand for your kittens than you have a supply of is to see how many kittens you produce per year and then analyze the demand for that by the number of applications that you get for one of your kittens. This is a great way to just right out of the gate, this is how you could determine if there's more demand than there is supply. And if there is, then your price can be higher than the average breeder that breeds the same kind of cat that you do. So if you are not collecting applications for your kittens, now is the time to start doing that. Collect full applications from anybody who is interested in a kitten, and that's going, start collecting this database of people, whether they buy a kitten or not, and that's going to give you some insight on how many people are actually seriously interested in your kittens. Now, you need to know who your buyers are. Who is your target audience? And this is very interesting to me. One of my very good friends breeds Maine Coons, just like I do. And her target audience is completely different than mine. And she targets them in a different way than I target mine. So my target audience is luxury buyers. I have created a message that I'm very consistent with that attracts luxury buyers. These are the higher income earners who have nicer homes and can afford higher prices and expect hand-holding and, white glove delivery and just the gold standard of a breeder. Where she targets the working Joe. She wants people to be able to afford a Maine Coon kitten, so her prices are about half of what mine are. And I'm always on her oh my God, you need to raise the prices of your kittens. And she's just absolutely, no, she's just not going to do it. She has a business model, and the way she thinks and her people, the buyers that she sells to, she likes them, and that she's happy with that. So you have to do also what works for you and know what your target audience is. Now, I've seen things that breeders do, and not everyone practices this, and I don't necessarily practice this, but if you pay attention to trends and changes in demand, that can influence your pricing strategy. And what I mean by that is particular colors or even genders in some cases can influence or can create a higher demand and drive prices up a little bit higher. A good example is in the Maine Coon breed. If you want a silver shaded or a high smoke kitten, a lot of people charge a premium for that color. And I've seen some new trends coming along with goldens, the color golden in Maine Coons. And, this is not to trigger anybody with colors, believe me, but that's what's happening with the trends. Now, when I first came on the scene in 2017, the trend at the time was black smoke. Everybody wanted a black smoke kitten. And, that has changed several times since, I've started making observations about trends in just the breed that I work with. So I'm sure that happens in other breeds as well. But, you can determine your price based on trends. You certainly have that option. So once you know your target audience, how do you figure out what they're willing to pay? Well, it's real simple. You add one question on your kitten application and ask them, what is your budget for one of my kittens? And I always make a drop down option, and the minimum that they can choose is my price. So I don't even let them choose anything that's lower than what my price is for a kitten. So if I'm out of their budget already, then they can close the application and leave. I'm fine with that because I don't negotiate my prices. They are what they are, and I'm only looking for the buyers that are willing to pay me my price. So on my drop-down menu, the very first option is what my price is, and I give everybody a range. So it's, a $500 range, and I give them, up to 5 different price ranges that are higher than mine. And I do that to see what people are willing to pay for one of my kittens. And that is great research. That doesn't mean that's what I charge them, but I do use that research to determine whether or not I can increase my price the next year, because I review everything in January and determine if my prices are going up based on the number of applications that I received, the number of kittens that I had, and the answers that were provided to me by my applicants on that sheet, on that, what is your budget for one of my kittens? I use that data. The quality of your kittens also helps you position yourself in the market. If you have a very solid pedigree, that adds value to your kitten. If you are working with champion bloodlines or grand champions, that is certainly a sellable point. Well, that can be debatable actually, because not everybody shows their cats, and I don't think that people that show their cats actually demand more for their kittens, and perhaps they should. I don't know, but if you positioned yourself correctly and marketed the champion bloodlines and the show cats, certainly I think you could demand more money for them. Rare colors, like I was talking about, the silver shaded or the high smokes. There's even blue eyes on the scene that also triggers people. But I just state the facts. All of these can justify higher prices. But now let's add some perceived value to your cattery. And this is where branding, customer service, and after-sales support increases the perceived value of your kittens. It's how you present your cattery to the public. Does it look professional? Do you offer outstanding customer service? Meaning, do you answer questions in a timely manner? Are you polite to people, or are you snarky and rude if they ask you how much? I know that I see that a lot, where people will get offended if someone just comes along and says, how much are your kittens? Well, that's a legitimate question that somebody is going to ask, especially if they see a kitten. It's a very emotional and impulsive feeling when they see a kitten that they love, and maybe they are looking for a kitten to add to their home and their family. And so of course they want to know how much it is. I mean, like, they don't know the right questions that you want them to ask, and everybody's different. So if you're snappy at them and start with your price isn't the most important thing, blah 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 blah, that just tears a buyer completely away, and they're probably not interested in buying a kitten. I know I certainly wouldn't be, but you're going to get that question. So you're in the customer service arena when you are breeding pedigree cats, because you have to deal with the public a lot, especially if you are handling inquiries manually by phone or email or messenger, whatever. You're going to be talking to a lot of people. So how you interact with people and engage with them adds value to them in their mind on whether or not they want to get a kitten from you. So it's not always about the kitten, it's about the breeder as well. So you could have the best, most beautiful, best temperamented kittens in the entire world, like 10 out of 10. But if you're a bitch, they're not going to want to buy it, because they have to deal with the breeder before the sale, during the sale, and after the sale. So, work on being a very, high-level customer service, very professional, and If someone asks how much a kitten is, just send them a link to your website. Give them information. Tell them where to go to get information about your kittens and your adoption process and everything. And if you don't have a website, well then you need one, especially if you're bad at customer service. This can eliminate that, and you can just ship people off to your brochure site where they can actually get the information that they're looking for. Professional presentation means a lot, and that includes how you present your kittens as well, the quality of photographs that you use and the quality of videos and the content that you put out about your cattery. All of these things are branding a perception about you as a breeder, your cattery, and your kittens. There's something called competitive pricing, which I'm going to deem to be the most popular method or pricing strategy that breeders use. And that's when they compare their pricing to other breeders and they want to be competitive. And that's fine. That's certainly a strategy that you can use. This would just involve doing some research on who you think is your competitor, because you may think you know who it is, but really it's not your competitor at all. I mean, how do you know who your buyers are looking at in addition to you? It might not be that person at all. But compare your pricing to people that are similar to you, like who offer the same health guarantee, who, do the same things for their owners, who take the same quality of photographs and have the same presentation professionally, and compare yourself to them to try to be competitive in pricing. And, there's a perception when it comes to pricing that is very psychological. And you really don't want to be the cheapest breeder, because cheap is never good and good is never cheap. And if you have your kittens priced, quote unquote, competitively, and maybe you're a little under market value, then make sure that you are still maintaining profitability if you're doing that, and work on reducing your expenses and your cost and start discount shopping and things for supplies and stuff. Don't really cut out on the important things like food, but look for ways to maybe find a veterinarian that will give you discount packages and specific costs that you can reduce to make sure that you are in the green. There's two different pricing models that you can use. The first one is flat pricing. It's very simple. All of your kittens are priced the same regardless of specific traits or colors or titles. The only difference in your pricing would be if you offer breeding rights. And it's completely up to you, but typically you would charge more for your breeding kittens than you do your pets. But flat pricing is very simple, very easy model, and easy to remember. Then you have tiered pricing, where you can base your pricing on factors like pedigrees, show potential, or specific characteristics like color. Discounts are also something to think about. You can offer discounts to returning customers. You can offer discounts to people that are buying siblings or, 2 kittens at a time. Some people offer discounts to military, teachers, first responders, things like that. Regardless of what your marketing strategy is and what your prices are, you should know your bottom line before you enter into any negotiation with a buyer. You can set firm prices and not bend at all, or you can certainly have the option to negotiate about price. I think value building is important for pricing your kittens, and having, your kittens are valuable in more ways than just being the breed that they are. So, you can justify that by explaining why your kittens are different than your competitor. Or, which I think is more important, how you are different than your competitor. So like I mentioned earlier, I reevaluate my pricing every January. I go back and look at my data because I am a data head. I'm an analytics freak. I look at numbers and I love them, and I use them to, determine what's going to be the pricing for the year that's coming up. I use them to determine lots of things, changes that I make to my system, changes to my emails, changes to my pricing, everything. Just I reevaluate everything that I'm doing every single year in January, and I make every year consistently. I have modified my price always more than it was the year before. So there's always a change in cost. The demand is getting greater for my kittens, so I'm able to sustain price increases every year. Inflation is something to factor in. The cost of everything is increasing right now, and it is going to be necessary to look at your prices and make periodic price increases to keep up with that inflation. During COVID, the cost of cat food and cat supplies went up exponentially, and they just have never come back down. So I did see a lot of breeders increase their prices, because the price of everything was going up during that time. And they've kind of remained stable since then. But I did see, the biggest price increase during the COVID pandemic. If you're unsure about your pricing, ask your buyers to give you feedback about your pricing decisions. So ask them how they feel about the prices of your kittens. And, they're out there price shopping and looking at other options. And so they're going to be the best ones to tell you, how they feel about your pricing decisions. So I want you to take some time to review your current pricing model and consider implementing some of the strategies that were covered in this podcast episode, and don't be afraid to go out there and reach for the stars and add more value to your cattery and your kitten packages and make some profit on your cattery business. You deserve it. You spend a lot of time, money, emotion, and it's valuable. So put some value on yourself as well as your kittens. I want to thank you guys and ladies so much for tuning in to the Cat Breeder Sensei Says podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, do us a huge favor and leave us a review. Share this podcast with other breeders that could also benefit from this, and subscribe to our podcast so that you get a notification the next time we release an episode. If you'd like to get more information about Cat Breeder Sensei, you can go to our website, catbreedersensei.com. We got tons of free training on there, a blog, all of our podcast episodes are there, free resources for breeders, and courses and professional services, all available to our community. Thank you again, and you guys make good choices out there. We'll talk to you later.